Welcome back to Q&A with Melissa. I'm Melissa Rohan, head of Waterfront Academy, a Spanish bilingual Montessori school in the Catholic tradition. And I'm thrilled you're joining us for another segment today. We're diving into questions about fine motor skills, language acquisition, and involving children in daily tasks. Plus, we'll explore some exciting Montessori classroom ideas for the holiday season. Let's get started. So the first question is about fine motor skill development for a 3-year-old. And the question is, the teacher mentioned my 3-year-old needs to work on fine motor skills. What can we do at home? That's actually a really good question. We get this actually a lot. So what we typically see is children aren't getting a lot of practice with their hands, and because of that, the children don't have strong enough fingers. And now, why is that important? Well, it's important for independence, right? So they can tie their own shoes, button up their own buttons, eat their own food, those types of things, open up their own snack packs, if that was something that you wanted them to eat. So there's a lot of reasons to do it, but for me, the biggest reason for them to do it is so that they can learn how to read. And let me explain a little bit. In Montessori, we always start with writing before reading, because if you can write it, you can read it. And so we will start with the movable alphabet, so that their hands don't get too tired when they're really, really young. But when they do start writing, if their hand gets too tired too quickly, then they kind of push off the writing because it's too hard. And so strengthening up those fine motor skills so they don't get discouraged from writing and later from reading, it's really important from jump to make sure that their hands are strong enough for it. So probably the teacher had noticed that that your child probably needed a little bit more attention in that area. So some of the things that we typically tell parents is, mixing dough, or kids love Play-Doh. Get some Play-Doh and they can work with that dough. And you can get some utensils also to help with that as well. Practice with the pencil, and when you do, 3 fingers, just like if they were writing, or same thing with like a fork, 3 fingers, or chopsticks are really good. Get them to try and use chopsticks, but rolling up towels, napkins, their socks when they're doing laundry to help you out, and you can do that side by side. That's another good thing to do. Scissor work, they love, or tearing things. So if you can just have them tear with 3 fingers, tear magazines, junk mail. Once they get going, they love tearing, and they love tearing into little pieces, and that's really good for their fingers, for that fine motor skills. And then scissors also, like getting them to do that motion, stirring, as I mentioned. So there's a lot of things that you can do. I wrote some things down, so let's go over what I wrote and see how I did. Fine motor skills are essential for children to master tasks like writing, dressing, and eating independently. At home, you can introduce practical life work, activities like pouring water, peeling a banana. Also, peeling a banana for sure. Mandarins and then orange peels, awesome. And then when you level up, you can do hard-boiled eggs and taking the eggshell off the egg. And they love doing that work. So buttoning clothes is another one. Crafts and manipulatives, drawing, using scissors, threading beads, that's another good one. Montessori puzzles offer puzzles with large knobs or more intricate designs, depending on your child's comfort level. Absolutely. The key is providing activities that your child enjoys while subtly working on those fine motor muscles. Absolutely. You don't want them to get too tired of it and then, again, push it away. So our second question is introducing a second language to an almost 2-year-old. The question is, how can I teach my almost 2-year-old a second language when we're not bilingual and have limited resources? That's a great question. So a couple of things. Under the age of 6, they're going to absorb language just like they're absorbing English, and you see that happening. If you had a target language, in our case here at Waterfront Academy, it would be Spanish. There's a couple of things that can help you out with. So first of all, it has to be a human interaction. So doing YouTube videos of another language or those games online, like that, it's not going to work. There needs to be a human interaction. So what I usually recommend to families where they don't have a second language but they want their child to have additional languages, I would strongly recommend that you learn the language side by side with your child. And this does a couple of things. One, you learn a language and your child learns a language, and there's that human interaction. You're creating a wonderful memory and experience both for you and your child, because you're doing this together and you're on that journey together. And then here's the really big thing that you can give your child is the gift of knowing that it's okay to learn, and part of learning is failing and being uncomfortable and not knowing everything. And you as a parent always to a child look like you're perfect. And that's fine, except for the fact that you're not teaching your child that it's okay to not always be perfect. And if they don't know that it's okay not to be perfect, then they're not inclined to try new things and learn new things. It's really hard for them to do that because they're not going to be perfect at first. And so if you can show that vulnerability to your child, you are giving your child an extremely wonderful gift of taking chances and leaps of faith in learning new things. So that is something that I might strongly suggest to a family who would be interested in learning a second language for their child, that they in fact do it too along with their child. Okay, so let me see what I wrote about this. Language learning at this age is about exposure and consistency. Here's how you can integrate a new language naturally. You can do songs and stories. Absolutely. Oh, I should have given you all these hints or tips. Play songs, read simple books in the target language, everyday words. Absolutely. Using these single words during routine, like agua for water in Spanish. But consistency is key. Immersing your child even a little bit every day will help them pick up words and phrases naturally. Absolutely. So while you're learning, because your child is under the age of 2, they can't read yet, but you can put on your, on your door, the word, your target language, that word on the door, so you see it and can read it out loud, and your child is learning it with you. So this is the door in the other language, or this is desk, and just put those little words all over your house. And then you can do it again, at the grocery store. Ahead of going to the grocery store, you could learn banana and bread, and then when you get to the grocery store and you're putting those things in your cart, you can say it in another language. So giving them these words so you're learning it and your child's learning it with you. is a really great idea. And then songs, right? Like, you can learn children's songs in the target language, and then it helps if there's hand motions or some kind of a gesture or dance that goes with it, because if you're using movement, it just activates more of the brain to learn more things. And like the fact that they're learning this target language with you, and I talk about this a lot, your language and your emotion parts of your brain are basically right on top of each other, and there's a lot of synapses that are going back and forth between the two parts, and so they're deeply connected. And what a loving, wonderful way to learn a language is with your mom or your dad or both, and you would be creating all of those memories, and that would be a really wonderful way of loving this target language and learning this target language. Okay, so the next question, it's about managing boundaries with a toddler and daily tasks. And the question is, how can I include my toddler in daily tasks when safety is a concern and boundaries are challenging? That's a very, very good question. We had a similar question to this before, and I really want to dive into this because I had another experience with a family recently, and it kind of, I kind of knew this, but it just really kind of emphasized in my brain how everybody wants Montessori, but unless you really do research on what Montessori is, and there's so much information out there, and it's so much to consume that it's very hard to understand what that looks like as a parent, especially if you're very new to it. And so I was talking to a parent the other day, and they're like, we're raising our children Montessori. And then when I started talking about the school and what we do here, it was, I don't say it was in conflict, they just didn't understand the depth of it, right? And so this particular question is coming from a parent who is trying to do Montessori at home and is struggling because they may not really understand all of the nuances, right? So when you have, being in a Montessori home, it doesn't mean that there is an absence of boundaries. In fact, I would say there are absolutely boundaries. The freedom comes because there are boundaries. So the boundaries aren't there in spite of the freedom. So let me kind of give you an example. When you have a parent that works at home, let's say, and the other parent is watching the child needs to understand that the other parent is working and needs to have quiet or needs to be uninterrupted. And so that would be the boundary. We're here in the house, and we can be in the living room, we can be in the kitchen, we can be in the bathroom, and we can be in your bedroom, but we can't be in the office or den, okay? Not when dad's working or whoever. And so that would be an example of a boundary. And be consistent, always. So if, maybe they are never allowed in that room, or maybe because there's equipment in there that would not be safe for your child, or maybe we're never going to be in that room when the parent is in that room, right? So we're going to have that boundary, and we're going to be consistent about that always. Or maybe it's you can't be in the kitchen if mom or dad are not in the kitchen. And that would be another boundary, right? And it's because it's safety. We want to make sure our children are always safe. So we can go to the kitchen, but we can only be in the kitchen when mom and dad are there, right? I don't know what your kitchen looks like, so maybe that's not an issue, but maybe it is an issue, and so this is just an example. So I would say that that freedom happens so you can, because you create the environment for the freedom, right? So you create the home that has chairs that are accessible to your child, and a table that's accessible to your child, and activities and space that's accessible to your child. And they can do anything in those areas provided they clean up after themselves, they use things the way they're supposed to be used. So even within those freedoms, those minor freedoms, the nuances is that there's still boundaries, right? And so I think that that's very important to understand, is that we can have freedoms because we do have the boundaries. But the boundaries need to be, highlight or yellow, like this is what it is, and you need to be consistent with it. And so that's what we do here at the school, and it's what I practice at home, and I tell all of our families to practice at home as well. And it just makes things very easy, or easier. Being a parent isn't easy, but we can make it easier on ourselves, okay? So in toddlers is extremely important as well. So including toddlers in daily tasks is rewarding but can be tricky. So here are some strategies to set you up for success. Review one or two rules before starting and modeling it. So for example, if they were on one of those toddler towers, you'd want to say your feet stay on the tower, right? Because you don't want them climbing up onto the cupboard, and you don't want them jumping off, and you don't want them dangling, right? So feet stay on the tower, and that would be the boundary. All right, and keeping the activities short, because their attention is not going to be more than 20 minutes. And then having activities that nearby that are safe and she can do or he can do independently, that are sensorial in nature, and then reinforce the participation, saying, I appreciate your help, thank you so much, and if things don't go as planned, we'll try again tomorrow. It's all about consistency and patience. She's learning every day, just like everybody else. All right, so the next question is Montessori shelf work for Christmas gifts. This one comes from a teacher. I'm a teacher looking to create shelf work for Christmas gift making. Any ideas? So this is wonderful. I love that. I love this idea for so many reasons. And I think this is something that parents can also do at home. So I remember seeing a quote somewhere, and I am going to ruin this, and I apologize, but essentially, if a child gives you a rock that they found, that is a gift that came from a child. A child doesn't have money or experience or whatever, and so that rock meant so much to that child, and they gave it to you, and that's a wonderful, wonderful showing of love. And so I think when you have that perspective and you understand that the children also want to show love in their own love languages, and this might be it. And so you're giving children a way of giving something to the people that they love the most, right? And the reason I love the idea, especially at Christmas time, which we're in the end of November right now, and when I'm taping this, and so Christmas is around the corner, so I think this is wonderful timing. So in my head, if I was going to have shelf work on the shelf, specifically to help children to create these gifts for the people that they love, right? It's reaching into, ways of communicating, it's reaching and doing service to others, but here's the other thing, we can put gift making that's also going to be one set up for success, right, for the child, and two, a fun, wonderful way to practice these fine motor skills. Yay! So there's a lot of things that we can do, like we can do threading beads, and they can make little bracelets, especially like because of Taylor Swift. This is popular among all those Swifties, so everyone would appreciate a beaded bracelet. You can do salt dough. I love doing salt dough, and what I do with the salt dough when we do it here is I make it ahead of time, and I make a huge batch of it, and then I separate it out. Let's say I want to have this on the shelf for I don't know, it doesn't matter. I make enough, or I divvy it up for the amount of students I have in the classrooms, right? So if I've got 20 students in the classroom, I would divvy that up to make sure that there's enough for the 20 students in the classroom. And I might put out 5 of them a day and keep the rest of it in the refrigerator. And then that child, like 5 children each day, let's say, can, so it's on a tray, it's in like a little, the cling, plastic cling, and then they can unwrap the plastic cling, they can take the dough out, and then on the tray I have a roller so they can roll it out flat, and then I have a handful of cookie, like small ones, not the big ones, but the small ones, because it's going to dry out, and so you want it to be as thin as possible without too thin where it's going to just crumble. You might want to play around with this ahead of time. And then and like the cookie cutters, and then they can set them over to the side and wait for them to dry. It takes about 24 hours to dry, depending on where you live and the amount of humidity you have. And then the next day, they can color them in, and it's wonderful. But pro tip, I like putting a little coffee stirrer there so they can make a hole that they can thread string through, so that they can put it on top of on their Christmas tree at home, or again give it to a parent or a loved one. And they can, usually I make enough dough for those small little cookie cutters where they could probably do about 4 or 5, depending on how they space it out. And that's kind of how I do it. But it's a great, it's been a favorite. They keep asking for it to come back, so I have to make some probably over the weekend so that we can have that for next week. So here's some more suggestions that I had written. Salt dough ornaments, I just described. Provide pre-measured ingredients, small rollers, holiday-shaped cutters for the students to create ornaments. Handmade cards. Yep, on the tray, I would have the paper, the stamps, the ink, colored pencils, and they can make their own handmade cards. Bead jewelry, set up the tray with beads and string for students to create bracelets or necklaces for family members. And just have fun with it. There's a lot of other ideas out there, but for me particularly, I like making sure that these are fun ways for them to, again, strengthen those fine motor skills. Ensure the activities are simple enough to complete independently, but meaningful for the children and their families. Absolutely. And okay, so we've got another question coming. Cursive writing resources for age 3 through 6. The question is, can you recommend resources for teaching cursive handwriting to children 3 to 6 years old? Yes. So important, which is why I picked this question. Okay, so there's some really good studies out there of the importance of cursive to innovation and creativity. So basically, when you're writing in print, right, and you keep picking your hand up off the paper, every time you do that, it's like a stop in the in your flow of consciousness. Okay, so you write, and every time you do that, it's like a pause, 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 pause. Now, if you do cursive handwriting and you're just kind of scribbling along and you never really pick up your pencil, you're not interrupting your thought process. And so, yes, it's chicken scratch, and yes, it's not pretty, and it's not what you plan on sending home in a thank you note, but it's an important tool for innovation and creativity once they, become in the workforce, right? And so you want to give them that tool so that they can be thinkers, and so I strongly recommend teaching cursive. I know a lot of people are moving away from this, but I think you're really putting your children at a disadvantage to do so, because thinking happens in handwriting, right? In scratching things out or drawing things out, or illustrating it out, right? So I just wanted to put that there. Now, there's a couple of different things that I would recommend, and you can make them or buy them, up to you. So I would strongly recommend doing the starting with the insets. Okay, you can make them at home or you can buy them online. They're called the metal insets. Okay, so you've got the metal inset, and we do 2 different colors. And the first color you trace around the inset, and then the second color you go and you put it on top. You find on top of it, and then you trace on the inside. Now, to do cursive, okay, we would start here at the bottom, right? And we would go up to the top and down and up and down. We would want to make these loops like so, as close together in uniform as you can, and just keep coming up like this, okay? And we're teaching our hand, three fingers, right? Just like you would. And we're teaching, left to right. And we're teaching, paying attention to our space, right? And we're teaching control. And so that is probably where I would start once you notice that the fine motor is happening. And then you would do it again with the other color. So I would start there. Then the next thing I might do, or is you would take the sandpaper letter. Okay, so look that up online. You can buy or you can make. If you make it, you can just go to the hardware, get sandpaper, and then what I would do is, it's called ABC Cursivo, I believe, is the font, and it's on Apple computers for sure. And or you could get something similar to that. But that font is perfect for lowercase or uppercase. And then you would bold it and make it huge and print it out, and then you would have a template, and then you could trace it onto the sandpaper and then cut the sandpaper. Use old scissors. Don't use your fancy stuff that you might want to hold on to. Use old junky scissors because it's going to ruin your blade. And then paste it onto the back of cardboard from your Amazon purchases, or I don't know, whatever. So 2 ways of doing it. And then with the sandpaper letter, so I'm gonna here we've got a big B, 3 fingers, and then trace it the right way, okay? Because the children are going to try and do all kinds of weird stuff to try and trace it. But you have to make sure that they start in the right spot and go up, around, you know, and over like so. And while they're doing that, go ahead and go buh, buh, okay? Buh. So do that. And then from there, I would have the sandpaper letter, and you can get, again, you can buy or you can make. If you make it, I would say get one of those cookie sheets and then put rice in there, and you can create your own little sand tray, or buy the sand tray and sand. And then you have your sandpaper letter, and then you've got your tray with 3 fingers again, and you go buh, right? And you just trace it right into the sand tray or the rice and cookie sheet. And then from there, I would have chalk. I like chalk because it has some resistance to it, and it makes a funny noise sometimes, and it kind of, you know, there's something to it. It's very sensorial, and it's safe. I know that sometimes people do whiteboards. I don't love those as much, but, you know, whatever, chalk and chalkboard, you know, a little small one, or, you know, something bigger. Teaching cursive in the early years helps children develop fluid hand movements and a strong foundation for writing. Here are some resources and ideas. Sandpaper letters, as I described. These are tactile and help children connect the shape of letters to their muscle memory. Tracing work. This is a great idea. Laminated sheets with cursive letters and dry erase markers are great tools for repeated practice. If you want to do little mnemonics for the letter shapes, that might be helpful. And then there's a lot of books out there and guides. Specifically, we like Handwriting Without Tears, but there's a lot of other resources out there to help. But incorporating cursive work daily during the work cycle to help it feel natural and engaging for young learners is probably the best tip I can give. Here we are. Question number 6, inclusive Christmas curriculum for a preschool. How can I create an inclusive Christmas curriculum that explores global celebrations? I love this. Oh, I love all these Christmas questions. We're on the precipice of Thanksgiving, but you can't help be excited to start the preparations for Christmas. And I love also, we're in Washington, D.C., and by virtue of being in a very diverse community, our school is diverse. Also, to add an additional layer with the dual language, we add yet another layer of diversity to our school. So I love, love, love bringing a lot of different traditions into the environment to help the children celebrate. I think it's also fun to do it in your home. So we could do it in the classroom, but we can also do it at home. And I do love the fact that we are adding teacher questions here, because I think it's helpful for parents to see what's going on in the classroom, but it's also helpful for teachers to see what the parents are asking and what kind of questions might arise in the home. So I think it's helpful on both sides to help with the communication. So regarding bringing in different celebrations and traditions, I think that's a wonderful idea. I would actually, or what I actually do, not what I would do, but what I do is I talk to my community about their traditions. And I might say, hey, like in Peru, how would you celebrate Christmas? And I will tell you that if you get to talk about your own home country, you get extremely passionately excited about talking about it. And so these are people that are very excited and eager to share that information and find different ways. So I love going to little thrift stores. You will find a lot of these elements that you can bring in. You can make it a little shelf space, and you can have all the different items from the different countries and different traditions. You can talk about it. There's a lot of story books out there where you can explore the different traditions. These are some of the things that we do here. So this is a very thoughtful question, and I love that you want to bring diversity into your holiday curriculum. Here are some ideas. Story time with global traditions. Introduce books like Las Posadas from Mexico, or The Gift of the Magi, which would be the Christian tradition. Music and dance include carols from different countries, Feliz Navidad, and some of the other ones from other countries. Let the students sing or play instruments to explore cultural diversity. Arts and crafts, create activities inspired by various traditions, like making luminaries or paper stars or decorating mini piñatas. And then you could do a recital, and you can include songs and dances from diverse cultures. You can do a Spanish carol, or a German folk dance, or a short prayer or poem from another tradition. And this approach will help children and families feel included while celebrating the universal values of joy, peace, and giving. All right, and I think that is our last question. So thank you for all of these wonderful questions. Montessori education is about cultivating a love of learning, embracing diversity, and respecting each child's individual growth. I hope today's tips inspire you to bring some of these ideas into your homes and classrooms. But if I have to ask, I do have to ask, did I miss something? Did I get something wrong? I'm also learning, and I'd love to hear your thoughts or suggestions. And if you have a question you'd like me to answer in the next Q&A with Melissa Rohan, let me know in the comments below, or just send it my way. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and join us next time for more insights on Montessori parenting and education. See you soon.